The alarm clock next to my bed was going off. I reached out and stopped it. At the same time, my hand touched something cold. It was my glasses. Why? Ever since that weird dream started, I hadn't worn my glasses. They weren't supposed to be here either. I looked next to me, but Saki wasn't there. It was normal for me to wake up alone, but it still felt slightly lonely. Can't believe he's still thinking about Saki when he's in Yoyoi's dream. Can't believe it. Perhaps because I was still groggy. It took me a while to notice. What is this? My half-asleep brain woke up in an instant. Those dream plants that had been in my apartment this whole time were completely gone. Yeah, the text box also completely changed. It changed back to its not dream text box. It can't be. I opened the curtains and looked out the window. Outside, there were no strangely colored plants, no sickeningly sweet smell nor scent of the forest. Well, I'm glad you can tell me that there aren't any plants outside. Meanwhile, I'm stuck looking at the fucking sky instead of the streets. There was just the cold winter morning air and the sun. The town streets were completely normal and grey. Is this the happy dream Yuyoi wished for? I turned the TV on. Well, yeah, now that it's Yoyoi's dream, the plants aren't here because the plants are associated with Maya. That's a half joke, half serious theory. It was the usual... What the fuck? Ah, shit. Great, yeah. Thanks, Siri. Fuck you. No, don't talk again. It was the usual morning news. There was nothing about Santa Claus visiting or General Winter on the march with his army. I don't remember that part about the dream. There wasn't much on politics, just the normal stuff about celebrities and the like. What's going on? As I stood there dumbfounded, the doorbell rang loudly several times. I jumped in surprise as the door started to rattle.
Nii-san, 起きてる?
Saki unlocked the door and came in without permission as always. Saki, I've told you not to... Wait, what? I told you to not just let yourself in. Yeah, I told you to not just let yourself in.
兄さんの部屋の鍵なんてないも同然よ。みんな好き勝手に開けてるじゃない。
That's true. Yuyoi and Alice made their own duplicate keys, and Hirosaka regularly borrowed Saki's key. It was a free-for-all at that point. But even so...
そんなことより気づいてるでしょ？私たち目を覚ましたかもしれないって。
Yeah. When I gave Saki an unconvinced look, she looked around the room and found my glasses.
ほら、起きたならメガネかけないとダメじゃないの。
Yeah. I bent down a little and Saki put my glasses on for me. I felt the cold frame and the softness of Saki's fingers. That was definitely the feeling of reality that I knew. Hey, Saki, though I doubt it, but are we really awake?
兄さんはなんで疑ってるの？
ここが、もしかしたらまだ、現実に見える夢の中かもしれない。そう思ってるんじゃないですか。
Hirosaka must have come with Saki, because she spoke up from the entrance.
それで先輩、あの女の望む世界っていうのは、どんなところでしたか？
Isn't this it? In response, Hirosaka knitted her brows.
どういう意味ですか？
I mean, this is where I came when I went through the doors. Saki seemed to be the only one who didn't understand what was going on. She listened quietly. Normally, going through those doors leads to another dream, right? That's how it felt when I woke up. But Hirosaka and Saki looked at each other in response to my words.
私はあの後、先輩を追いかけて、 目を覚ましてここに来たんですけど。
I told her to take care of things.
それは、すみません。
だけど、その夢の扉だっけ？それをくぐってない私がここにいるのはどうして？
This time, Hirosaka and I looked at each other. Saki, are you real? You're not a fake created by Yuyoi, are you?
失礼ね。きちんと本物よ。なんだったら弥生先輩の知らない兄さんの恥ずかしい話でもしてあげましょうか？
I'll believe it if it's something Maya doesn't know either. Saki gave me a condescending look.
小さい頃、うちに泊まりに来た時、外に雷が落ちて、私が怖がってトールちゃんの布団に潜り込んだ時に、おまじないって言って。
Stop! Alright, I believe you. You don't have to say any more. I hurriedly shut Saki up. I couldn't let Hirosaki hear the rest of it.
何をしたんですか？気がろうしい。
This is when we were kids. If it hadn't come from my memories, then the Saki had to be the real one.
それで、何がどうなってるの？私にもわかるようにきちんと説明してほしいんだけど。
Saki hadn't been there last night, so she couldn't follow the conversation, and being left out made her grumpy. I'll tell you while we eat. Hirosaka, I'm going to change, so could you go buy something? When I looked at the clock, I saw we still had plenty of time. When I went to hand her my When I looked at the clock, I saw we still had plenty of time. When I went to hand her my wallet.
なんで蓮野さんには一緒に行けって言わないんですか？
You know, reasons.
着替え、手伝ってあげようか。
I'd gotten careless. As I regretted it, I said, both of you leave for a bit. I'm going to get ready for school. Okay, you could have just said, oh, while you're gone, I'll explain to Saki what happened. Right? That would have been an easy excuse, but no, you had to fumble. But Hirosaka looked at me coldly as Saki giggled. They really made it feel like normal everyday life had returned. That really made it feel... Okay. Saki and I usually always had food from the convenience store for breakfast. He says normal everyday life like he's walked to school with Keiko and Saki before. Like, no, you only walk to school with Saki. You've only ever walked to school with Saki. Keiko only showed up after you took her out of her dream. Right? And everything after you took her out of the dream was part of the dream. So this has never happened in real life, quote unquote, because this isn't real life, obviously. And I don't mean that this is a game. I mean, they're still in a dream. Just one that's, made by Yuyoi. Sometimes Hirosaka would take pity on us and make miso soup, but regardless, we ate. As we did so, we explained to Saki what had happened last night.
ここが弥生先輩の理想の夢？
このいかにもいつも通りで平穏なのがですか？なんだかそうは思えないんですけど。
She can get carried away when she gets going, but she's actually quite lazy. If we're talking about likes and dislikes, she prefers it to be more peaceful like this. Did I say the last thing before? Sometimes Hirosaki would take pity on us and make me... Saki and I... Yes. That made... Yeah, okay, I said those things.
そうなんですか？むしろ先輩の方がこういう落ち着いた夢を好みそうですけど。
兄さんだったらもっと手も出さないくせに可愛い女の子をたくさんはべらせたいとか望みそうだけど。
それは、ある意味、叶っているような。
Hirasaka murmured to herself, but I pretended not to notice.
兄さんには本当に言いたいことが山ほどあるんだけど。
Saki looked at me sharply as she walked next to me.
それよりも、今私たちが本当に起きてるのか、それとも弥生先輩の作った夢なのか、それを判断する方が先かしら。
Yeah, well, if Alice is here, then I guess we'll still be in a dream, but I don't know if they would be able to notice. I don't know if they'd be able to realize that. Even as we walked, this didn't feel like a dream at all. There was nothing strange going on. Once we went to school, everything would be normal. It felt like that sort of world. What's wrong, Hirasaka? Hirasaka had kind of a wary look on her face.
もしもここが夢だったとしたら、と思って。そうだとしたら、私たちは現実に戻った時も、ここが本当の現実なのか、不安に思って生きることになるんでしょうか。
Oh, don't worry. You'll know when you're not in a dream when the chapter name says epilogue. I couldn't say. Because even before all this started, there were times when I didn't know if the reality I saw was the real thing, or if I was in a dream. Sometimes I wondered if it was just the continuation of a dream.
あんまり心配しすぎると、兄さんみたいになるわよ。
Yeah, and unlike Toru, Keiko doesn't have anything to ground her to reality. Hold on, Saki. If you speak as if that were a bad thing.
ああ、確かに。それは困りますね。
Even you, Hirasaka.
まさか兄さん、自分が困った人間だって自覚なかったの？
Of course I knew, but what does that have to do with it? I even call myself troublesome in the title of one of the episodes. Or meddlesome, one of the two. There was no way I could deny it when asked like that. I felt like I had been tricked into admitting it. We headed off to school along streets that looked as real as reality could get. No matter how real it looked, it had to be a dream. Morning. I parted from the other two near the school gate and headed to my classroom. It felt so normal that it actually made it feel strange.
あ、トールくん。おはよう。
よ
Hey. Asahi looked more troubled than usual, and Tetsuya's expression was grim. The class also seemed kind of cold towards them. Did something happen? I sat at my desk and sighed. I hadn't seen any dream flowers nor any other signs this was a dream. The sky was clear and downright pleasant looking.
なあ、トール。休み時間、ちょっといいか。
I don't have a good feeling about this. Looking angry, or rather, like he didn't know what he should do, Tetsuya spoke to me. Sure. Is something wrong?
その様子だと、お前もしかして知らないのか？
Those words, along with how Tetsuya and Asahi were acting, made me come to a realization. You mean about how Yoi and her family are moving to the UK?
お前、なんでそれ知ってて落ち着いてるんだよ！
Well, timeline-wise, they shouldn't have gone to the UK yet, so you need to calm down. Panicking won't do any good. I scolded Tetsuya, who had stood up from his chair. He hesitantly sat back down.
お前、そういうところあるよな。
Tetsuya sighed and tried to calm himself. I thought Tetsuya was pretty amazing for being able to switch gears so quickly like this. Well, due to personal reasons, I don't have the energy to make a pointless fuss. I was often too tired from my dreams to do so it couldn't be a help if he saw me that way. Well, in this case, I had already known about it and was still processing it in my mind. It was really just a matter of time for me to accept it. When did you even hear about that? Did Asahi tell you?
それは、
Uh-huh. I could make a guess based on the cold atmosphere of the class, as well as Asahi's gloomy demeanor. Tetsuya may have done something after he heard the news. Tetsuya looked regretful. Maybe he knew he had messed up too. You were done because of that, weren't you? You were done because of that, weren't you? I chuckled with an evil grin on my face. I wasn't doing it to be mean. After all, you're a petty person. I wonder what you said after you flew into a panic.
トールてめえ
Tetsuya grabbed me by the collar of my shirt, but his face turned red. Did you say something to make her dump you? Did you mean it? I'm sure you didn't. You don't want things to continue all awkwardly, do you? Do something about it. I was being overly haughty. It was easy to say this sort of thing if it wasn't about you. I thought Tetsuya might hit me, but
お前の言う通りだよ。あ、くそ、みっともねえ。
he let go of me and turned to face Asahi.
朝日、後で話がある。頼むから時間作ってくれ。
They were like, is their talking time going to intersect with the time he's meant to be talking with Toru, or is it going to happen after? Asahi nodded, looking a little happy. Oh, good. It went okay. My heart was still pounding as I sat down. But what about me? I murmured. Lunch break was as noisy as ever. Tetsuya and Asahi went off somewhere with serious looks in their faces. Oh, I guess the talking time that Tetsuya and Toru were meant to have happened in the classroom. Well then, what should I do? I'd gone to Yui's classroom, but she wasn't there. Okay, that's what I was worried about. Because here's the thing, right? Every time we have this moment, every time we have these scenes at the climax of the chapter 8 of every character's routes, the main heroine of said route is never fucking here. Even in Saki's route, because Saki wasn't actually there, it was just Maya as Saki, or the person posing as Maya posing as Saki. Right? There were hardly any classes for the third semester for third-year students, especially during January when there were exams, so there weren't many people here. So it wasn't strange that Yuyoi wasn't around. I would like to be proven wrong that Yuyoi isn't here, but that's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while for them to prove if I'm right or not. I wanted to talk to her, but I didn't even know if the Yuyoi here was the real thing. How lame am I, after saying all that to Tetsuya?
本当に、人に言うのは楽なんだけどね。
Alice nodded next to me matter-of-factly. So anyway, Toru may not realize it, but Alice being here is proof that this is a dream. Hey, what are you doing here? Alice was leaning in from the window, even though this floor wasn't ground level.
何って、ご飯食べに来たんだけど
She said casually before climbing through the window into the hallway. She was wearing her usual casual clothes, and the people around us were staring. Of course they were. Alice was the only one here not wearing a uniform, and also came in through the window of... What story? And they said this wasn't ground level, but I don't remember which floor they're on. Like the third?
あ、ちゃんとスリッパも借りてきたから大丈夫よ。
She changed into the slippers and picked up her shoes. That's not the issue.
ちょっと、トールが騒ぐから目立っちゃってるじゃない。
It makes less sense for her to still be in casual clothing. Well, kind of, but also, it makes less sense because they have a sprite for her in her uniform. He looks out of place because of her green eyes, but, it's my fault. But we really were attracting attention, and I had the feeling that rumors were starting to brood on people's minds. Yeah, I can't believe he's with another girl that isn't Keiko, Saki, Yayoi. I would say Asahi, but she's dating Tetsuya, so I guess she doesn't count. I'll ask you one more time. Why are you here? If you came to eat, then just go to the usual place. It was quite a ways from here to the preparation room, so why was she here?
それなんだけど、私、トールを探しに来たの。
Then please don't do anything to make yourself stand out. I appreciate the concern, but you're doing more harm than good. I put my hands on Alice's shoulders to keep from falling. If my knees gave way anymore, my face would probably end up in her breasts. Save those moments for her route. It's coming up soon, so just hold off until then. Alice smelled differently than she did in dreams. She smelled like clean sheets. It was a poignant scent that I had smelled once before. Interesting. Really? I mean, obviously this is still the dream, but the fact that she's smelling differently after the dream has been taken over by Yayoi, and she smells like clean sheets. You mean like... Okay, I might be grasping at straws here, but you mean like the sheets you would expect in a hospital?
ちょっとくっつかないでよ。こんなとこ弥生が見たら怒るよ。
I'm still hellbent on the theory that Alice is dead, and she's just another Maya. Right? But anyway, I was looking for Yayoi. She wasn't in class.
いや、どうしてそんな普段行かないところ探してるのよ。
Why did Alice have an exasperated look on her face?
準備室でみんな待ってるよ。
え？
いや、それでトールが来ないと食べれないってさきちゃんが言うから探しに来たんだけど。
Alice's stomach rumbled. More importantly, wait, Yayoi's here?
来てるよ。なんかさきちゃんとケイコが渋い顔してたけど、私のいない間に何がどうなってるの？
Before Alice even finished speaking, I took off running towards the science preparation room.
これちょっとせっかく探しに来てあげたのに逃げるんじゃない！
If I left Alice here, she would probably either come to the preparation room or be found by a teacher and get thrown out. Ignoring her protest from behind me, I headed for the preparation room. When I opened the door to the preparation room, the usual smell of chemicals and coffee met my nose. Warm air also spilled out from the room.
トール、寒いから早く閉めて。
I'm glad she's here. Not because I'm proven wrong, I mean also that, but also because this is meant to be her dream. So, it wouldn't make sense for her to not be in it. Yayoi was sitting in her usual spot like it was to be expected. Like, Keiko wasn't in the... Keiko disappeared from this part of the chapter... around this part of the chapter in her route because she was already in her own dream. Saki disappeared around the same time because she was kidnapped by Maya. And neither of those situations fit Yayoi, so it should be expected that she's here, I guess. Next to her, Saki and Hirosaka were making sour faces. I was probably making a strange face too.
何よもう、みんなしてそんな顔して。私はここにいたらいけないって言うの？
It's just, why are you here after saying all that?
いるわよ。だってケイコの言う通り、目を覚まさせたんだもの。
Yayoi blew on her coffee to cool it off.
目をということは、ここはやっぱりもう夢の中じゃないんですか？
そうよ。こっちで話しておいた方がいいかなと思って。
Just then, I heard someone's running steps coming from behind. Whoa! Alice pushed me aside and locked the door, breathing heavily.
ひどいじゃない。置いてくなんて。しかも、なんか先生につまみ出されそうになったし。
Well, if only you had your school uniform on, you would. If only you had your school uniform sprite on, you wouldn't have stood out.
それは、そんな格好で勝手に上がり込んでくるアリスが悪いんじゃないかしら。
私にお昼ご飯を食べるなって言うの？
You could at least be a little sneaky about it.
言っておくけど、一応兄さんを探しに行くっていうのは止めたのよ。
I figured as much. When Alice started doing something on her own, no one could stop her without using quite a lot of force. Yeah, but like, why did none of you step in to take her place? No, I don't care about a thing with Alice anymore. I don't care about the thing with Alice anymore. The problem now is that person right there, isn't it?
自分の彼女をそういう風に呼ぶのはどうかと思わない？
自分が同じ立場になったらって想像してから言ってもらえますか？
In this case, I agreed with Hirosaki completely. I took a deep breath to calm down. So, what did you want to talk about?
私がやろうとしてることを説明しておかないとならないでしょ？
Yui wasn't acting any different from normal in the slightest. I didn't know how I should act in return.
とりあえず、食べながら聞けば？お腹空いてると兄さんってば、ろくなこと考えないから。
That's true. With us suddenly returning to reality and Yui appearing like this, there was a ton of things I wanted to say, but I hadn't gotten them arranged in my mind yet.
それで、何がどうなってるの？
Alice asked as she quickly reached for one of the bento box tiers. Oh yeah, you haven't been around, huh? It was rare for her to not appear even though that sort of thing was happening with Maya and Yayoi. But Alice just tilted her head, her mouthful of Inari sushi. She didn't seem to understand.
まあ、アリスへの説明は誰かに任せるとして。
Said Alice, absorbed in eating lunch. She seemed pretty desperate. Maybe she was hungrier than usual.
とりあえず、夢の方が思ったよりうまくいかないのよ。マヤってば、よくあんなことができたと思うわ。
Saki and Alice reacted to those words. What is Maya doing now?
こっちに出てきた時はまだ寝てたわ。夢の中で寝てるっていうのも変な話だけど。
I thought maybe Maya had disappeared after her power was stolen by Yayoi, but it seemed she was still around. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or not.
それであの子、先輩の妹の力を自分のものにして、一体どんな夢を作るって言うんですか？
幸せな、望むままにやり直せる夢かしら。
What do you mean?
本当は、もうみんな幸せになれる感じの夢にしたかったんだけど、そんなあやふやな望みなんて形にしづらいじゃない？だから、方向性を持たせたの。もしもあの時やり直せたら、とか、そういうことって思わない？
That was something I had wished for ever since that incident.
なんでやり直しなんですか？
Saki asked without looking at Yayoi.
もっと意味もなく幸せを感じるようにでもしちゃえばいいじゃないですか。
それはできないのよ。何せ元々のその夢を改ざんする力の方向性がやり直しなんだもの。
もう少しわかりやすく説明できないんですか？
Yayoi thought for a moment before looking at me.
マイヤ自身が今までやってきたことが全部やり直せたらって夢だったでしょ？あの子、基本的にそういう形でしか夢をいじれないみたいで、その分を私は借りただけだもの。だから、やり直すしかできないの。
Is that because I wanted to redo something all this time? It seemed perfectly possible, considering the relationship between me and Maya. Maya herself was my desire to redo things taken form.
きっとそうね。
Yui nodded, like she was just informing us of the facts.
今、 私たちは同じ夢を見ることができるけれど、
Saki still wasn't looking at Yuyoi, like she was trying not to think of Maya.
もしも先輩の言う通りにやり直した場合はどうなるんですか？みんなが納得するまで、折り合いがつくまで何度も繰り返すんですか？例えば、私がやり直して、兄さんを弥生先輩から奪ったとする。その場合、どうなるんですか？
Well, if that would have happened, we would be in a completely different route where you would also have to accept letting go of Maya, and but unfortunately you weren't able to do that, so she takes your appearance and has sex with Toru while you were kidnapped, and then we have to do a whole rescue mission thing, and then we have a cool CGI at the end where we shoot Maya. Metaphorically, I mean, we actually shoot her, but there was, she's not real, so and there was a whole scene that I had to censor for the YouTube that involved Alice's panties. But that's because it's an Alice CG and she always has her panties out all the time for some fucking reason. You know how it is.
きっと、そうすると私とサキちゃんは違う夢を見ることになると思う。
同じ夢を見続けるわけじゃなくなるんですか？
It was strange for us to be sharing dreams in the first place. Dreams were things people had alone. That dream would just become what each individual person wished for. Compared to our present situation, that almost seemed to solve things, but it could actually turn into something terrible. If that's the kind of dream it is, then no one will be able to wake up from it. Just like me in the past, it was likely we wouldn't be able to escape.
ええ、そうなるかもしれないわね。
See, Yayoi says that they're in the real world, but they've burned too many bridges for me to trust them this time around. Alright? I don't trust Yayoi when she says that they're in the real world, and it doesn't help because Alice is here. The one other person other than Maya you associate with exclusively the dream world. Especially because, I think Alice is dead.
そんなの、誰も望んでない。何を勝手なことをしようとしてるんですか？
It doesn't help that Toru said that she smelled like clean sheets. Which, sure, you can't... it's not like you can definitively associate that with a hospital room, right? If he said a different smell that would be closer associated to a hospital room, like disinfectant or something like that, then it would be more definitive. But because of something as vague as clean sheets being mentioned as what she smells like, I can't really say that that is clear evidence of her not being here. Not being alive.
望んでいないなら目を覚ませばいいわ。夢そのものに人を完全に捕まえることなんてできないんだから。
Yuyoi sounded almost like Maya as she said this.
誰も望んでなくてもいい。みんなが現実がいいって言うなら。そうね。その場合は、私は一人で幸せな夢に逃げることにするわ。
Yuyoi gave us a tight smile. Don't pull a Keiko, okay? We've already had that situation happen, and it ended poorly. That's...
その弥生の望む夢はいつできるの？
Alice asked quietly. She had been listening to us talk as she ate.
難しいけど、昨日一晩いろいろやってみたときに、なんとなく分かってきたし。こっちで何日もすればできるかしら。
その夢は、弥生だけが見ることはできないの？どうして周りを巻き込まないといけないのかな？
Alice's voice was icy. Yeah, like, if you were going to involve anyone, why would you involve anyone other than Toru?
それ、あなたに説明しないとなんないかしら。
それ、どういう意味？
Alice's attitude was as hostile as when she dealt with Maya. Yuyoi gave a small resigned sigh.
私だって好きでみんなを巻き込もうと思ってるわけじゃないの。だけど、 どうしたって元になる夢は、みんなで一緒に見ていた夢だわ。私にできるのは、その夢に脚本を付け加えるだけ。マイヤのやってた不便さがやっと分かってきたわ。結局、大元のルールは変えられないの。だから私は、私が望むままに、夢を自分の都合のいいように変えていく。そう言ってるの。ただ、やっぱりね。トールとかアリスがいると、うまく私だけの思い通りにできないのよ。だから、ちょっとだけ目を覚ましてもらったわ。
何を自分勝手な。
自分勝手は重々承知よ。
Here, Sokka looked like she was going to let herself. She wasn't going to let herself be convinced as she grit her teeth. Sokka gave the one who would hurt me an icy look. Alice quietly had the same expression on her face as when we'd first met.
先輩、自分のやってることが正しいって思ってますか？
私にとっては正しいわ。みんな好きにすればいいじゃない。夢が気に入らなければ目を覚ませばいい。捕まえようなんて思ってないから。
But there are those of us who are weak. I hadn't intended to say anything until the conversation was over.
だとしたら、弱いのに強く生きないとダメなのかしら。
Even though she was the one who was going to alter the dream however she wanted. No, maybe it was precisely because of that fact.
私は弱いのよ。だから、これから夢に逃げる。それを本物にしてやるの。
If your desired dream and mine were the same, then would we be able to remain together even though the dream just repeats?
兄さん？
ええ、きっと。今まで一緒に夢を見ていたみたいに、そばにいられるはずよ。
If we desired the same thing, that sounded terribly vague and dreamlike.
止めたいなら本気で止めてちょうだい。私はこれから本気で夢に負けるつもりだから。ここで無理やり捕まえてくれてもいい。夢の中で、私が作ろうとしてる夢を壊してくれてもいいわ。トールとアリスが本気で壊そうとしたら、きっと私一人じゃそんな夢は保てないもの。
そう。今までトールがやってたみたいに、弥生の夢を壊せばいいんだ。
ええ。できるなら。
Then Alice gave Yoi the exact same look she used to give Maya.
わかった。弥生はこれから、マイヤの代わりに私の敵になるんだ。
アリスの立場で言うと、そうね。だけど、本当にそんなことを言っていいの？
なんで？私は今までそうしてきた。これからもそうやって夢の中で好き勝手する奴らを止めるつもり。
そう。だけどアリス、あなた、本当にこの夢を終わらせていいの？
どういう意味？
Alice couldn't end this dream.
だって、この夢。
Before we could understand what those words meant, the bell signaling the end of lunch rang.
わからないならそれでいいわ。それじゃあみんな、私は放課後まではここにいるから、聞きたいことがあったら来てね。
Yuyoi made to drive us out of the preparation room. Yuyoi what? I don't know how to fix that.
ちょっと！まだ言いたいことは終わってません！
だから、後で聞くってば。別に私は逃げないし、せっかく目を覚ましたんでしょ？授業、サボってもいいの？
Let's go, everyone.
兄さん、なんでよ！こんなままでいいの？
She said she won't run away. I'll talk to her later. Reality is more important for you guys than dreams, right? In that case, you need to actually go to class instead of playing along with her crazy dream talk. Saika looked unconvinced, but she didn't say anything more.
アリスはどうするの？授業とか受ける気全然なさそうだけど。
弥生がその気なら、もう言うことはないわ。そんな夢にみんなを捕まえようとするのは許さないもの。
Ella started to leave for the rest of us.
だったら、どうするの？
弥生の言う幸せな夢なんて、私が壊してあげる。そんな夢に捕まらないように。
そう。なら楽しみにしてるわ。
Yoi waved, but Alice turned her back on her and walked away.
トールは後で来るの？
Yeah, there's something I want to ask you alone. Yuyoi gave a resigned sigh.
それじゃあ、後で。きちんと授業を受けるのよ。
Waving to us as she'd done with Alice, Yuyoi sent us off to class. Saki and Hirosaka gave me unconvinced looks. If there's something you guys want to say, you should say it. I get the feeling what you guys are thinking and what I'm thinking are different.
兄さん、大丈夫なの？
Not answering, I lightly petted Saki's head and left to return to my classroom.
先輩
I didn't answer. I couldn't say that I would be okay. What should I do? I knew what I wanted to do, but I lacked confidence. I couldn't show how pathetic I looked to those two, so I took off running. We were in the science preparation room in the evening.
来たわね。今日はもう来ないかもって思っちゃったわ。
Why wouldn't I?
そっか、ないか。
Yui giggled, but I didn't come to joke around. Why did you go that far?
なんでって？
Why did you try to escape into a dream?
疲れた。からかな。
Yui stood by the window and stretched. Her blonde hair looked red in the setting sun.
トールは知ってるでしょ？私の本当の親がどれだけろくでもないか。
If what I say in that dream is true, then yes. I saw in that dream is true, then yes.
おおむね本当。こっちに来るまで友達いなかったのも本当。環境も大きく変わるし、ちょっと頑張ってみたら、なんかうまくいっちゃって。ここでは本当楽しかったわ。なんだろうな。生きてて一番楽しかったのがこの3年間だった。それを続けたいって思うのは悪いことなのかしら。
What if, for example, I said that I wanted to redo things from when Mai was alive, and this time make it so she didn't die?
今の私には止められないわね。結構焼くけど。だってそれ、私よりもマイヤーを選んだってことでしょ？
It's just an example. Mai will never come back. The thought still made my chest ache, but I had accepted it. I couldn't do anything over. I couldn't do anything over? You mean redo anything over? Never
じ
mind.
ゃあ、トールはマイヤーだけじゃなくて、私もなくしていいの？
That's...
トールのことは好きよ。だけど、こんな私でも、これまでずっと育ててくれた両親も大好きだわ。実の娘の方が可愛いのも当たり前。私みたいな、誰にでも尖ってすれて接してた困った子が、努力もしないで愛されようなんて、甘い話だったのよ。
That was something she had once said to Hirosaka.
その二人に、心配をかけたくない。男目当てに日本に残ります。なんて言えない。だけど、トールとは別れたくない。わがままなのはわかってる。選べ、我慢しろ。そう言いたいのもわかるけどね。疲れたわ。
Her smile resembled Hirosaka's. Did those two come?
さきちゃんも稽古も来たわ。不器用よね、あの二人も。私を自滅させて、昇進のトールにつけ込もうなんて考えもしないんだから。
I think if Saki did that, she would feel even more guilty, and Hirosaka probably thinks it would be a disgrace.
なるほど。確かに。それじゃ自分で選ぶわけにはいかないわよね。
Even though it wasn't a fun conversation, Yuyoi giggled.
止めないの？いつもみたいに、無茶すんな。やめろバカって。
I would if that would make you stop, but once we fall asleep, we'll be in the dream once again anyway.
私を寝かさない？
That's impossible. Yeah, this isn't Irasekai. I don't want to be reminded of that moment in that game, but it just works in this situation.
一日くらいならできるかもしれないけど。ほら、今夜は寝かさないよって。
That has a different meaning.
意味ならあるかもしれないけど。
What do you want me to do?
今は、そうね。抱いてほしいかな。
It wasn't like I'd been expecting. It wasn't like I'd been expecting it, but I wasn't surprised either. Why?
恋人に抱いてほしいと思って何が悪いのよ。
Well, you know, the fact that you're doing it in the preparation room means that you're going to be fulfilling the prophecy that we saw in the dream of when you and I would say you and Toru, but it was Toru's dream. So Toru and Yayoi were dating, and Asahi caught them doing it in the preparation room. Yayoi pouted with the cuteness she didn't usually show.
ほら、トールとは結局夢の中でしか、してないし、せっかく現実に戻ったんだから、感じさせてほしいな、とか。
Her expression was so unfair. Even though I knew we were at school, and that Yayoi wasn't the only one who had a key to this room. And even though I knew this wasn't the time for this, I couldn't resist. It might hurt in reality.
実は私、向こうで経験済みで、夢ではバージンのふりしてましたって言ったら？
You're just saying that, putting on an act.
これを見えって言えちゃうのは、トールのいいとこか悪いとこか迷うわね。
Yayoi continued to talk, so I sealed her lips with a kiss. I'll probably be rough.
トールにその解消があればね。
She laughed before kissing me back. The moment our lips touched, Yayoi let out a small cry. Her lips were softer than I thought, and because we were so close, I could smell her shampoo. Come to think of it, we'd hardly ever kissed like this. Yayoi's tongue entered my mouth and reached for mine. I responded by entwining my tongue with hers. As I responded to her kiss, I gently touched Yayoi's chest, causing her to jump for a moment. Why are you so surprised?
急だったから、仕方ないじゃない。
I'm sorry.
まったく。これで頑張れるかな。
Okay, I'll admit that they really are in reality. And the only reason I'm admitting it now is because Yayoi lost her virginity again. I will say, though, it does confirm two things. Right, one, that they actually are in reality, and two, that losing your virginity in the dream doesn't transfer over to your real body. Right? Like, sure, maybe that's a stupid question for me to ask, but, you know, there was still a possibility. Right? And we didn't really get to see that from Saki or Keiko, so I'm glad we got to see it now, if at all. You didn't hear that. When it was over and we had settled down a little, Yui put her clothes back on and stretched her with her back to me. Do your best in what?
もしも二人の望むものが分かれても、私はきっとトールをずっと感じていられるかなって。
Why are you thinking in such negative terms?
あら、私はもともとそうなのを必死にごまかしてたの。トールは知ってるくせに。
That's true, but I'd known Yuyoi when she cared even less about the world than Hirosaka when I first met her. That's why I had been surprised to see her like this when I met her at school.
ほら、もしかしたらさよならになるかもしれなかったんだし、思い出が欲しかったというか。
I should have known.
そうは言うけど、トールは結局どうするの？
Well, I know you're not the kind of person who would readily accept something without proof.
よくわかってる。ここでやめろなんて言われて止まるわけないものね。
So I'm going with you into the dream.
多分だけど、アリスは止めないわよ。 それでも一人で止めに来る？
Who decided I was doing it alone? You shouldn't look down on our two underclassmen that much.
そっかそっか。ま、私は納得できるなら何でもいいんだ。
I can't believe Saki has been reduced to the underclassmen.
夢見ることもできなくても、トールと別れても、たとえここで人生終わっても、納得できればね。
What are you saying? If Hirosaka heard that, she would get really mad.
あの子私に似てるくせに変なところ真面目なのよね。
I'm relieved to hear that. I would hate it if Hirosaka turned out like you when she got older.
なんで？慕われてるじゃない。私がいなくなっても、稽古がいれば満足できるかもよ。
And what do you mean by get older? You mean like in 2 years? That's a very short amount of time. No one could replace you. I mean, sure, Keiko could change drastically in those 2 years, especially with an experience like this of remembering these fuck-ass dreams, and specifically this part where she's going to have to go back into the dreams, and this time it's her friend who's making the dream. That I don't know why it sounded like that.
そっか。トールは私を選んだんだものね。
Did I say no one could replace? Yeah, no, I said that. Basically, you know, Yayoi didn't have this before she got to this, personality-wise. So, like, Keiko isn't going to be like Yayoi in 2 years because of her experiences. Especially because of what Yayoi is doing right now. Having finished tidying herself up, Yayoi turned around.
それじゃトール。さよなら。
Goodbye. See you later. Yayoi gave me a wry smile. She bashfully put a finger to my lips.
さあ、それじゃ帰った。私は後で鍵返さないといけないから。
Why are you boiling the water then?
コーヒー飲むくらいいいじゃない。ほら、早く行った。
She shooed me away like a puppy. Just so you know, I'm not giving up no matter what.
トールの諦めが悪いのは知ってるわ。
When she turned around, I could see that her cheeks were wet with tears. Saying nothing more, I left the preparation room.